Hello and welcome to Roll for Sanity, where we become mythos investigators to battle evil in tabletop role-playing adventures. Today, we're going back in time and creating a Regency-era investigator to help celebrate the release of Regency Cthulhu, an expansion to the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game 7th edition by Chaosium. The Regency era was an odd time in British history where King George III was too mentally ill to rule, and so his son George became Prince Regent, and this title was adapted as a name for the era. This period in history has become romanticised with Jane Austen, as well as various film and television adaptations, a good amount of parodies such as Blackadder III and Pride and Prejudice Zombies. Plus, of course, Bridgerton has brought the Regency era to the streaming generation. But you may ask, why would you want to play a game set in an era of strict societal rules, romance and endless courtship, when there is Cthulhu Wild West and Cthulhu Medieval Times to play in for a bit of history? Everyone has the motivation for playing Regency, and there is unlikely to be shootouts with Yig or axe fights with possessed Vikings, but I think that's the key, the art of being subtle, to resolve a mystery, as everyone in the Regency era was practically a spy, each competing in a game of secrets. The espionage, diplomacy and bravado of a Bond thriller combine in Regency with the mystery and terror of the early Doctor Who stories. The position of a person in high Regency society could be overturned with a whisper, so the protection of their secrets and their upstanding in society was of paramount importance. So, who will we choose to be our Regency investigator to uncover the mysteries and secrets and horror that await in Regency Cthulhu? I've had the pleasure of collaborating with the Miskatonic Playhouse, recording a Regency actual play series called Cult and Culpability, a link to which you can find in the description. The character for the adventure I chose to play was a humble village vicar. Why? Well, in Regency times, vicars, the holy men who held church services and looked after the faith of their parishioners, were more of a free agent than other classes. Regency Cthulhu does introduce new occupations such as gentlemen, gentlewomen, as well as their servants, footmen and housemaids, but I wanted something a little different. Thinking of how I would go about investigating mysteries in an era where walls have ears and keyholes have eyes, I figured I would either need a character who is a master of disguise or someone who could blend in quite easily. A lord of the manor or a butler would look out of place when trying to eavesdrop on gossip in the local shop. A vicar, though, would be seen round and about in town, not suffering any kind of reputation loss for associating with rich and poor alike. And who better to turn to when there is talk of the supernatural than the vicar?
Personal attributes.
Our keeper of arcane lore for the Regency game, Newman, wanted us to have a character we wanted to play, so allowed us to adjust some of our dice rolls. I chose to boost my dexterity and appearance at the cost of some of my power and constitution to get the following attributes. Strength of 55, so the vicar isn't one for manual labour, but he won't shy away if somebody needs a hand. Constitution 60, quite fit as a person, so probably all the walking to church has done him good. Size of 60, not the tallest, but he does make the pulpit look a little small. A dexterity of 45 means he's a little clumsy and not very good at dancing. Appearance of 50 means he's not the most handsome of gentlemen, certainly better choices out there. An intelligence of 80, our vicar is naturally bright with a great intelligence score. Power of 60, quite rightly, our holy man has a good spiritual maturity when it comes to the supernatural. Education of 85, exceptionally well educated, so we'll have to include this level of learning in his backstory. Luck of 55, a nice amount of luck to start off with. Let's see how much of that we can hang on to. Now we need to choose our age. Regency follows the 7th edition rules, so I'll say for my character he's 39 to avoid any physical ailments, and this will give him a chance to have done all the learning he needs to and be settled down in his occupation as a vicar. Let's put those into the character sheet and get the derived scores. So we have our stats for our character and can look at how the skills will shape our Regency investigator.
Occupation and skills.
We want to be a vicar, so we can take a look at page 74 of the 7th edition Investigator's Handbook to see the occupation skills matching the clergy occupation. It has credit, mustn't forget that one, accounting, history, library use, listen, other language, persuade, psychology, one other, personal or error speciality. Now, with our keeper's permission, I swapped the skill listen for one of the new or adjusted skills that Regency Cthulhu introduces, religion. We're going to say that our studies to a high level were in religion at college and at university. Adding to that education, and this may seem contradictory, we're going to say that our character also studied astronomy. Page 33 of the Regency Cthulhu rulebook states that astronomy in the Regency era was a study of the heavens, thought to be a way to understand God. Any excuse to have a character with astronomy is fine by me. And I see the skill also covers the star charts of astrology, as well as the rulebook stated, a little meteorology for good measure. Our vicar will know when both types of Mercury are rising. To find out how many points we have to spend, we'll look at clergy once again on page 74 of the Investigator's Handbook and see that it is our education score multiplied by 4 to see how many points we have to spend on skills. 340, very happy with that. The Regency era had different classes of society, and this is reflected in occupational bands that you can find in the Regency Cthulhu rulebook on page 35. My character fits in Band 3 professionals, along with doctors, lawyers and professors. Here we see the suggested credit rating for Band 3 people is between 30 and 70, which matches the clergy occupation rating of 30 to 60. I'm going to max this up to 60, as this is an era where definitely having money helps you in more ways than one. We've said we want to be at a degree level for astronomy and religion, so we'll take those to 60 points each. Let's also add some points to back up the academic studies in history, library use and Latin. Even though it's Regency, we have to remember we are an investigator, so should pick up a social skill. We'll say our character is quite good at debating and add points to persuade. And we'll say our vicar picked up an understanding of what makes people tick with points in psychology. And even though I loathe adding points to it, we are educated enough to be able to spare some points for accounting. Keeping the books of the church and donations all in order is part of his job, so we might as well.
Personal interest skills.
What did our character pick up as personal interests? Regency Cthulhu gives us some new Regency skills such as dancing, fashion, gaming and natural philosophy, among others, which are tempting to complement other occupations, but what would suit a Regency vicar? Naturally, we'll add some investigator-centred skills like dodge and brawl, as a vicar who can't hold their own against robbers will lose the parish collection very quickly. Our clergy is also experienced with a shotgun and can ride, so we'll say they've been invited out to the country for some shooting and riding, so some points in Spot Hidden will help him spot the difference between a pheasant and a peasant hiding in the trees. A cold should always be an interest of your character if you have enough points. And I would add more to these skills, but I need to keep as many points as I can for the primary skill of Regency, the new skill of etiquette. Etiquette, as the book describes it, governs who you can talk to, as well as when and how you address them. What a peculiar skill, you may think. My investigator will just walk up to whomever they like. Well, you could do that, but that would lead to a bad conversation. Remember, this is a game of shadows, and etiquette teaches you the rules. You may suspect cultists are conducting rituals in the orchards of the manor. You can either ignore etiquette and risk being shot by the gamekeeper as you fail a stealth roll, or use etiquette to be invited to do some stargazing on the lordship's land. This is going to be a fun one to see how we use etiquette in the Miskatonic Playhouse adventure, Cult and Culpability. For our vicar, though, he has taken a personal interest in the mechanics of society. Much like the stars of the heavens, he has worked out the patterns and motions of people, events and occasions to become an etiquette expert. Our next addition to the character sheet is an attribute called Reputation. Now, this isn't really a skill like etiquette. It's more like your sanity attribute that can be gained and lost as you play. Should you indeed be caught trespassing by the gamekeeper, you could lose some reputation as word of mouth of your misdeeds spreads. In another situation, it can be used as a skill. As you say to a doorman refusing admittance, "Don't you know who I am?" A roll under your reputation might have the doorman apologising and letting you in. Or a fail may lead to the crushing retort, "No, I don't," as they slam the door in your face. Now you're probably thinking, well, that sounds like a credit rating roll, yes? And you'll be right, as reputation is calculated by adding your credit rating and etiquette skill together, then dividing them by 2. But reputation is more than flashing your cash. It's about how other people in society recognise you, perceive you. Often characters in Regency stories were in debt, so in-game could fail a credit rating. But making a successful reputation roll would allow them to be recognised and continue the story. So my investigator has a max credit rating of 60. Add to that the base etiquette of 16, which is your intelligence divided by 5, to which I add as many points as I could. I would have loved to have played the piano, but I just didn't have the points. 56 points, taking my etiquette to 70 for a reputation of 65. That's a good score, and I believe I might get a bonus die in some parts of the game for that high level.
The finishing touches.
Let's shape up our character. We'll call him George, after the current king of the era. And at size 60, my character's personal description is probably more round than tall. Whilst he does a lot of walking, he does enjoy his food. Ideology. Now, being a vicar in Regency times was sometimes more of a job than a personal calling of faith, with clergy being placed in churches and parishes by rich families. George will believe in the Christian doctrine and be part of the Protestant church, which will shape how he sees the mythos creatures. Significant people. In the adventure for cult and culpability for the Miskatonic Playhouse, my character is part of the influential Perdue family. He is the youngest of 3 sons and is closest to the eldest Adam and his 2 adult children, Thomas and Anastasia, who will be fellow investigators on the adventure. My character is married to Maria, a concert pianist, and has a son, Edward, who is probably at university. Meaningful locations, I'm going to say the Royal Opera House in London. It was where he fell in love with Maria as he saw her play at a reception for royalty. Everyone else was more interested in Maria's music teacher, Clementi, but George only had eyes for Maria. His treasured possession will be revealed in the adventure, but I can say it is some kind of important book. Now, for the top of the second column, we have traits, and I think with all his education and etiquette, George will probably err on the side of caution and not want to rock the boat. He will be mature enough to recognise that he is in a position of privilege and old enough to remember the reign of terror to which France was subjected. He wants to keep everyone happy, so people from all walks of life can get along. The next 3 boxes on the character sheet will be filled out as the adventure progresses, and as I'm building a character for a mini-campaign, I'm going to say that George has not had any encounters with the mythos, but certainly believes there are some mysteries in the world that should be best left alone. So there we have it, my first Regency character from the Regency Cthulhu rulebook, available from the Chaosium web store. Now, thanks to the wonderful team at Chaosium and the Miskatonic Playhouse, you can get 10% off your entire shopping cart at the Chaosium web store when you use the code PLAYHOUSE10. Code is valid until the 30th of November 2022. That's Playhouse and the number 10. Pick up Regency Cthulhu or anything else you like, and you'll be helping the Miskatonic Playhouse and supporting the amazing creatives at Chaosium. Links can be found in the video description. Thanks for joining us, and we'll roll for sanity again soon.